Hey everyone. So today what I want to discuss with you is how I was able to get an APV of 909.57 for the year 2014. My basic strategy was to technically pay attention to what my revenue, my operating income, and my net income was. Looking back at 2009, the forecast was 245.75 for revenue, 2260, and 1356. Yet, for the year 2014, I was able to retrieve 355.72 for my revenue, 44.46 for the operating income, and 26.68. Now, my goal today with the video is to explain to you exactly how I did this, but I won't go too much into detail, just more of giving you examples of how this process was done. So to be able to explain that, I will need to show you exactly the projects that I actually invested in. Over here on the right side, you're going to see where it says project updates, and this shows exactly the projects that I invested in. So for instance, I have children's accessories line. The children's accessories lines performed well, slightly higher than budget. The next line I invested in was the doll houses with miniature dolls. This project launched successfully, but with somewhat lower margins than expected, attributable to higher production and marketing costs. So what I'm gonna do is this link down here you see it says view all updates. I'm gonna actually click it real quickly. Okay, now this shows all the investments that I actually did throughout my term for 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012, and then 2013 before I actually arrived to 2014's acquired APV of 909. What you're going to learn in class is each year you're able to technically invest into different projects, but you don't have to invest into every single project and make sure your budget is technically used all up together. In reality, you can only use as much as you really feel necessary, but just make sure that those investments you make are going to be positive. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how I determine whether they're going to be positive investments or not. So see here, for instance, in 2009, I invested into 3 projects. 2010, I invested only in 2. 2011, it was 5. And then 2012 was 4. And then 2013 was actually 3. So you see, I started off with small investments, then got into big investments between the time frame of the years that I was able to invest, and then towards the end, 2012, 2013, I started to come back and decrease my investments. So, in order to actually show you how I was able to make these investments and determine the proper NPV investment as well as what I was going to gain back from those investments based on my cash flow, I'm going to show you the project details. Now, this is very important because in the beginning, when you're actually going to go invest into a project, the first thing you're going to realize is, oh wow, I have a project discount rate. Now, this is very important because this determines the percentage you can technically give as a discount with respect to the division that you have. So in this case, we have the division of production. But if you click this link right here, you technically have production, retail, and licensing. And it shows you here the percentages you have in respect to low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Now, if you see this, you see how I'm using production technically for my division. Here in the discount rate, it says it's 7.70, yet I use 2. The reason why I did this is because if you actually fluctuate with respect to your discount, it's going to be a lower risk. So what people don't realize is when you decrease this discounted rate, you see over here where it says project NPV. You see how much it says my NPV is 15,695. Obviously and clearly from my investment, I didn't gain that because I ended up with 909. But the simulation itself is going to actually take that 2% and consider a rate that's higher than 2% and lower than that 7.7. And this is where you start to take the advantage because you realize, okay, you know what? If I decrease my discount rate, I'm going to gain a higher NPV. I just don't know exactly how high, but it will be higher than what I actually have with respect to my 7.7. Now, in my situation, you don't technically just have to use a division for production. You can actually use the division with respect to retail or licensing, but just because I chose production, it gave me a higher NPV versus using retail or licensing. Okay, so for the next step, in order to determine, okay, even if I am decreasing my rate and I'm going to have a higher MVP, the question you should ask yourself is, am I going to get back an investment? How long is going to be the payback period? And how much is the project going to actually cost me in respect for the year, the following year, correction, or the lifetime? So the lifetime for this project was 3.14, okay? But the payback period was going to be 8.7. So the payback period was going to involve almost 9 years. But the project is only going to cost me 3.14, which at the time I believe you have 8 as your constricted budget. So it only cost me almost about, give or say, a third of my actual spending cash flow. So now when you see this and you realize, okay, you know what your project cost is going to be, you know how much the project's going to cost you every single year and what's the payback period. Make sure you realize that what your cost is going to be is less than what your actual in investment will be when you get your money back as a return. Because if your return is actually smaller than your actual lifetime investment, there is no point. And I'll tell you now, you better stop and do not invest in this, or else you will be broke and you will be negative. And I'm going to tell you that's possible because the first time I did the simulation, I believe I got negative 264, and then I learned after my results, obviously I was doing something correct. So now once you learn about, okay, where you can invest in respect to your lifetime and what's the project for that lifetime cost in respect to the project, obviously those constant words there, you want to make sure you scroll down and then you look for your cash flow statement. So okay, you see here, now you see the cash flow statement. When you see the cash flow statement, you want to see what is going to be your net income plus the depreciation, which means what are you going to actually lose in respect to value over time for your investment. Here you're going to see a grand total of what your cash flow is going to be. So once these two have actually been accumulated, you're going to have 0.93. You see the following year is 1.02. Then the following year is 1.12. And then the following 1.23. You're almost actually technically increasing by almost 11.11, 0.13, and then 0.13 again. But the key is you have a positive cash flow per year and you're increasing. These are key elements. These are the things you want to look for, because if your cash flow is increasing every single year, you're going to have a positive bottom line, which in this case is the net income. And we obviously do. So these are the kind of investments you want to see, you want to invest in. If you have investments that show your cash flow are exactly the same every year, immediately stop and do not invest, because that obviously and presumptuously means that you have inflation. You have to understand inflation. If your cash flow is going to be constant per year, if you take into consideration inflation, you're technically losing maybe 2-3% per year. So cash flow as constant means you're losing money, because this can say here 0.93 all the way throughout. But in reality, maybe this is 0.93 this year, and if you take into consideration inflation, you might have 0.91, you might have 0.89. So you gotta understand to also look at that before you make an investment. And also, ending cash balance is also great, because you see, after you have a positive cash flow and it's constantly increasing, once all your expenses have been taken care of, your investment, your financing, your operations, because remember, your operations is always subtracted, and so is your financing and your investments. You're gonna have finally an ending cash balance. This tells you right here, I have cash balance and it's positive. So with that said, you know you're making a good investment. And obviously, your MPV is going to increase. So that's just an idea. You actually you're going to see, once you click this link that I just showed you right here, you will be able to see all the other previous projects that I've invested on. In this case, you as well, if you did it. These are projects that are available that I did not invest in. The reason why is because these projects were going to give me negative MPV, and I don't want that. Now, clearly, I made a couple, well, most likely I made a lot of investments, but look what I gained from it. I gained 909 MPV, which means I'm clearly doing something right. And the case here is I want you to do the same calculations and determine how can I gain a higher MPV. Now, you won't exactly know how high of a number, but you will know if you make good investments and based on your cash flows that your MVP will be pretty high, because in this case it says my MVP should have been 15,695. Well, clearly that's not what it was, because again, the simulation takes into consideration, hey, let's not overcount. Let's figure out an actual accurate and analytical number that is going to be perceived to be correct. And that's the number that I got. Well, not this one, but the one that I got in case to my final outcome. So I'm just going to show you another example. Let's go look at Grow With Me Line. Okay, you see this one here again. There's a discount rate of actually 3.50. The project lifetime was going to be 9.15, and the payback period was going to be greater than 10 years, and my discount again is 3.5. IRR is going to be 46.55, and my MPV is 189.34. I made this investment in 2011. That's a good thing. When you click on this link here, it'll show you all the investments you made, and it'll actually tell you what is the year you made it, and whether it was a risk, if the risk was high or low. In this case, it was pretty high. So let's see if this investment actually made me a positive cash flow and it gave me a positive cash balance. Okay, so from what I can tell right now, you see the cash flow statement? It's positive. I'm going 1.42, 1.64, 1.76, 1.86, 1.98. So from what you can tell right now is I am increasing in cash flow. That's great. That's what you want to see again. You want to see those positive outflows. And then look at the ending cash balance, 0.39, 0.44, 0.47, 0.49. It's constantly increasing. This right here shows you that I made another good investment and I'm gaining from my investment. And there's the reason why I have a positive NPV and why my NPV is so high. These things are the key things you have to understand. If you're going to make an investment, look at the discount rate. Okay? Let's see. Low risk is 7.7, high risk is 9%. Again, I'm in production and I start messing with the numbers. Go as less or as small as you can, okay? Because if you keep going as small as you can, the computer's going to start calculating you some really good NPVs and high numbers. In this case, say if I would have gone really low and said 2.0, correct? Let's see what would happen. Okay, that's an exaggeration. And that's not something that's critical. That's not something that we can really use. So if I play with 3.5, okay, you see, now that's something I can use, and that's something clearly that made me a good investment. So just knowing that is good for you because then you can figure out what is going to be my expectancy, what's going to come out as my earning. So make sure you just keep that in mind. Let's look at just one more, and then we'll call it off. Okay, expansion to England. See this lifetime project cost 0.8. It's cents. That's nothing. It was inexpensive. Payback period 9.63. So it's going to take a payback period of 9.63 and it's only going to cost me 0.8. And the project discount rate was 2.5. Okay. What's the NPV? 3,741. Clearly, again, that's not what the accurate NPV is, but it is a positive cash flow. See this? If you look at the year 2015, 2016, 2017, this would have been my actual NPV at the end of the year 2023, but we're not going that far, so clearly I can't make that NPV very accurate. This is taking consideration again, remember, at the end of your pay period. But we only go into 2015, so I would never actually see that. Okay, so let's see again cash flow statement. Okay, see, cash flow statement again, it's increasing 0.23, 0.24, 0.25. Clearly stayed stagnant on the next following year, but that's okay because it started increasing again. But then again, in the end, it kind of stayed stagnant. So then let's really see what happened with my ending balance. You see? Okay, this is something I may have not noticed the first time. And this is probably why my NPV actually decreased this year. Let's see what year actually was. I think it was 2012. Yes, 2012. This is why my NPV decreased because during this year when I was making my investments, I invested too many. And I didn't realize that I was going to have stagnant years where it's going to be remaining as a constant ending cash balance. So I really didn't change that much, but it did increase a little bit at the very least. So at the end of the day, it was still a moderate project. And for the price, I mean, it's a steal. Why not? So again, just basically showing you all this and giving you a better perspective of how it works. It's always good to go back to the original file, which is the dashboard. And then you can just tell again, okay, this is what I'm looking at. This is what my revenue is coming from with respect to each division. Production includes 194.5, but my big money maker is the retail business, which means in respect to retail, I'm doing fantastic. So based off that, again, take consideration what is your revenue forecasting, what you're going to actually receive for the following year. I was clearly up every single year. In 2014, I was 355.72, and the previous year I was 324.53. So with that said, this is what I've actually have been gaining per year, which is another trick technique that not many people know. And I figured this out through actually trial and error. So